Hey everybody, welcome to Friday. I'm going to talk briefly about the Sapir Whorf hypothesis that is not a hypothesis, my response to Sofia and David, and then thank you, Ben, for bringing up language exams. Okay, so first, I just want to point out that culture in the way I was taught includes language. It includes language, politics, history, geography, and a bunch of other facets. So I don't think we can really separate language away from culture like you two were discussing. I think you guys both hit it right on, saying that language is complicated and it does lots of very interesting things to the way we perceive the world. So thinking slowly in that language, I think, is marking that you are starting to think in that language, and if it's still slow and hard to do, I think it's just a marker that you haven't spent enough time thinking in the language, and that should improve over time. I do have to say that in Japanese, you both said Japanese is super polite, and I can understand why you say that, but I would not use the word polite. I would use formulaic, I guess. There's a very structured way in which language is used, and very rigid use of when you say what and to who you say what. One thing I want to say is that the reason people have this misunderstanding about Japanese is that we are all taught about tatemae in the textbooks, and tatemae basically means build in front. So it's the wall you build in front of yourself. And if you ever go to Japan, 100 different people will tell you how skilled you are at chopsticks. And if they're not paying attention, they will tell you that at every single meal, because that is what is expected. That is what is polite, is to say, "Ah, josu desu ne, you are so skilled at chopsticks," because you are a foreigner and you are making an effort to embrace Japanese culture. And so they are supposed to reward you and compliment you to encourage you to keep doing so. So the opposite of tatemae is honne, and honne means your own opinion. So it's your true feeling, your true emotion. And this is the thing that you are not supposed to present at work or school, and to a certain extent at home. There's an expectation that you maintain your tatemae. So tatemae is so important, there are novels written about it. One that I read last year was Kamen no Kokuhaku, or Confessions of a Mask, of somebody who did not fit the ideal of what he should be, and he spent so much time pretending to be someone else, he didn't know who he was underneath his facade. On to exams. I feel exams are one of the easiest things to get wrong in the classroom. If you look at the American education system, you can see pretty quickly that we don't really know what we're doing either. I actually switched schools because the system my previous school was using was severely outdated. So we would have businessmen who came over from Japan to study English, and they would laugh at us. And the textbook was aimed at someone going over to Japan in the 1970s and working in an office. So if the businessmen were laughing with us, along with the college students, something clearly wasn't working there. The grammar structure was really good, but that doesn't really matter if people are laughing at you because you're speaking like their parents. But yeah, our exams were also in front of our peers, at least half of them were. We would have 3-part exams, and at my school we're at now we have 4-part exams. So the first exam would be in front of your peers, so you would select a partner, you would write a script, and you would perform it. But your script had to match the sample in the textbook 99%. So you would have to use the hyogen, or the expressions, the tango, or the vocabulary, and the bunpo, the grammatical structures. And the hyogen were usually really out of date. Some of them are still good, but I still get a lot of weird looks at my new school and talking to my Japanese friends, because they're still kind of, you know, what your mom and dad would say, not what you would say, really. Though we were allowed to make certain creative additions. There was one year I remember they were talking about going to Russia to drink vodka with polar bears, and I don't think that had anything to do with the situation, but because they were able to use the grammar structure and the expression, they were able to fit it into their script. At my new school is kind of based on educational research. They hold it in very high regard. So our instructors are graded, our textbooks are graded, And we have exams we take at least once a year to evaluate how we are learning. It does not affect our grade, but I think it's how they evaluate our teachers and our textbooks and our examination system. So I do like that. Over the summer, the second and third year textbooks changed because either they were out of date, people were not learning from them, or something new came out that the head of the Japanese department wanted us to use instead. I'm kind of happy about that. I wasn't too happy with the books we were using last year, but I'm not really sure it was strictly necessary. But anyways, okay, so at my new school, we still have pair work or group work. It's mostly pair work, but the only person you're doing it in front of is your instructor. And you still have expressions and grammar and vocabulary you are supposed to use, but that's only worth 25 to 50% of that grade. The other part is, can you hold a conversation? Can you act respectfully? Can you start a conversation with small talk? Can you end the conversation realistically? Are you an attentive listener? Do you use the right speech fillers in conversation? So we're graded on that, and we're told how to improve that after our exam, which I think is more helpful than the grade, is the written suggestions we get from the instructor saying, hey, I noticed you used this wrong. I'm in 4th year, so all of the advice is given to me in Japanese and has been since I transferred here, because I transferred in 3rd year, but I kind of appreciate the system. It doesn't work for everybody because we have bi-weekly video assignments where we have to talk to a camera, and people kind of struggle with that because the video software is not very nice. It's not as flexible as using iMovie or Windows Movie Maker. You basically have to use one program and do everything in one take, which if you're speaking in a different language and you're not allowed to read off a script is a little challenging. I personally like it, about half of my classmates hate it. So since next week I think is themed, if we could start a conversation in the comments about the first time you recognize yourself thinking in another language and when that was and how it made you feel to realize that. I know I get super excited and then I drop out of it and I start thinking in English, oh my gosh, this is so cool, and then I lose it. That's it. I don't know what next week's theme is. I'm sure Eddie will tell us on Tumblr and Twitter, and I will see you all next week. Annyeong!